Welcome back. It's still Breakfast Daily right here on Citi TV, and it's time to get into our health segment. Now, this Thursday, the 9th of March, is World Kidney Day. And for that reason, we're going to talk about kidneys today, but not about the kidneys of adults. We're talking about kidney disease in children. A lot of the time when we have these conversations, because children are young, we forget that they're also susceptible to some of these things that plague us as adults. And so we're talking about the future generation, so we can leave a heritage of good health, in the Heritage Month. Now, our guest today is Dr. Annie Owusu. She's a pediatrician at the Department of Child Health at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital here in Accra, Ghana. She's something else to us, but I won't say it. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, you showed up for Heritage Month. I love it.
Too much, you guys.
No, you showed up.
So, anyway, it's been a while. How are you doing?
I'm very well,
Okay.
David. How are you too?
And now that I've greeted you, I'm going to do agenda.
Hey.
So Dr. Annie Owusu.
Yes.
What did you do with Kelvin?
I like that.
What did I do with Kelvin?
Yes, I mean,
What's the
because
Kelvin and then we always have
we
Dr.
always don't
Kelvin
have Dr.
Owusu.
Kelvin Owusu
I
here.
have
So,
Dr. Annie Owusu.
Dr. Annie, what did you do with it? I mean, I don't understand.
I just replaced him.
Well, it's good to have you here this morning. It's good. But you're a pediatrician, so you work with, children. Today we're looking at kidneys and kidney disease in children. Is it an issue?
Yes. That's a simple answer. Like Ipioka said, most of the time when we are talking about kidney disease, everybody is thinking adults. But there's so many kidney diseases that actually affect children.
Okay.
And it's a problem because there's a whole ward at my department which is focused towards kidney diseases in children. And every time there are people on the ward is never empty. So that should tell you that there's always a child that needs attention because they have a problem or other with their kidneys. So yes, it's something we should be talking about.
What are some of the things what are some of the kinds of diseases that we'll be seeing with?
Okay, so it's a range. So oftentimes when we talk about the kidneys, it's those two structures at your flanks, left and right. Everybody normally should have two. And there are certain situations where somebody may not have two. And when we talk about kidneys, it's like that's the focus. But there's a whole system involving those kidneys, including the tracts that connect to them, connecting to the bladder, and then leading outside where urine will pass. So the scope of kidney disease is anywhere along this tract. So it could be the kidneys themselves having a myriad of problems like kidney injury or certain kind of diseases like nephrotic syndrome or even infections in the kidneys themselves. Then also along the tract, you can have all sorts of malformations along the tract all the way to the urine going
But they're
out.
just children.
That's
How
scary.
are they getting all these things? They're just children.
So the biggest cause of kidney disease in children is actually congenital. When we say congenital, it means they were born with it.
Okay.
So most of them are born with a malformation of the kidneys or their tracts. And that can cause problems later. So these things can even be picked when they are still in their mother's wombs.
Okay.
So that's the commonest presentation. Then along the way, there are other presentations which they pick up later. And in our part of the world, something as common as malaria could actually lead a child to have a kidney injury that will land them in hospital and need dialysis.
Wow.
So the range is that wide. The biggest group is those who are born with kidney diseases, which they will live with for life because it's a malformation that you could sort of manage or solve with some surgical intervention, but ultimately they will need lifelong follow-up. And then there are those that will develop later along the line due to an insult to the kidney that they pick up later on in life.
So, Doc, let's talk about the functions of the kidney. I think we use the term or the word kidney all the time. Sorry, we know we have two kidneys, like you said, but I don't think a lot of people realize what the function of the kidney is and how central it is to our existence as we're walking around every day.
Yes. It's so key. And it's like they're just hiding in the back there quietly, but they do a lot of work that we cannot downplay. The first thing the kidney does is to regulate your fluid intake, your body's water level, kind of. So as you take in water, your body decides that, okay, I need this amount of water, I don't need this amount. The kidneys will excrete the excess. if it's a hot day and you are sweaty and all of that, the kidney decides, okay, you are losing a lot of water through sweat, so let me conserve some water, so then I reduce the amount of urine that you are going to produce. So the kidneys does that, regulates your fluid balance. They regulate other chemicals in your body that your body needs, so sodium, potassium. Sodium is like basic salt, potassium. Then they actually also keep your body's pH at a fairly constant range. It's supposed to be kept tightly, because any small derangements from the normal could pose severe problems. And then they also produce hormones. So one hormone is erythropoietin, produced to sort of help your body to produce blood cells. We have renin, which helps your body to sort of regulate its blood pressure. And then it's also involved in calcium and then vitamin D metabolism, which you all need for growth and normal function. So these are a few of the things.
No, so the kidney is very important, because if we're talking about running to, and we're talking about blood pressure, that means that if you're hypertensive, your kidneys could be a problem.
Yes.
We're talking about vitamin D and calcium. If you have bone problems, or like I don't have the best teeth, we should be checking our kidneys. Like almost everything about our bodies, there's something related to the kidney.
Yes, and then when your body produces waste and all of that, after you've eaten, after you've taken your medications, all of those things would be metabolized in the body. And then the kidney has a responsibility of getting them out of the body in urine. So if the kidney has a problem, it means all the waste from food breakdown and all of that will accumulate in the body, and that also poses problems.
Oh, dear kidneys. Okay, so we mentioned that when it comes to children, most of the cases that we see, the children are born with those malfunctions or deformities. But what are some of the causes? I know you talked about malaria a little earlier, but what are some of the other causes of kidney disease?
Okay. So there are things that will happen in your body that are not related to the kidney, and then the kidney gets injured, like a bystander, innocent bystander, mission and baby.
Stray bullets.
I know, like exactly. I'm sitting by somewhere and then there's something going on and then I take the fall for it. So that's the case of malaria. Infections can also do that. Severe dehydration. There was a time in Ghana in the past, we had a lot of people, children coming with diarrhea and vomiting. They're so dehydrated, their kidneys will shut down, because when you're dehydrated, the body conserves water.
What was the problem?
It was, well, exposure, and then it was also management, being able to pick up the early signs of dehydration and intervening before it gets to the point where it affects the kidneys. Now we are not seeing them as much, because there's been increased awareness, there's been increased health worker education and all of that, so we are not getting them coming as much. So in my hospital, it's been a long time I saw kidney disease due to severe dehydration, but there was a time it used to be the norm. So now we are managing those better, so we are not getting those. So toxins, another thing. Medications, simple medications like NSAIDs, those are the ibuprofens, diclofenac, can also cause direct damage to the kidney. Then herbal preparations. In our part of the world, there's still that some illness, child has a problem, somebody decides, let me grind these herbs, pour some alcohol on it and give it to the child. Next thing you know, the child is not peeing anymore, it's getting swollen, and then they appear, the kidneys are shutting down because it's had a direct insult. So these are some of the things that can.
That's a wide range.
How does one know that there's a problem and I should go and get checked?
Okay, so again, the presentation will depend on what exactly we are dealing with. If it's an infection, children will get urinary tract infection, so they come with fever, vomiting. The urine may be not clear, maybe turbid a bit, like it seems cloudy. Or there may even be blood in the urine, or the urine may be foul smelling, or they may be peeing more often than they usually would. And for older children, they'll tell you that when I pee, there's pain. So that we know that it's the urinary tract infection. There's the swelling, as I don't know, the picture just passed, where the child gets swelling. Sometimes it starts often in the mornings. They wake up with puffy eyes. As the day progresses, it sort of resolves. So you think it's nothing. Then as it progresses, the whole child gets swelling. And also another thing we need to pay attention is the urine. The urine that's coming, what's the color of the urine, how much of it? Because another early indication would be that the urine may start reducing in quantity. The child, maybe if it's an infant, was wetting 6 diapers a day, then now it's only halfway and it's taking the same amount of fluid. Or we are having dark urine. We call it cola-like urine.
So like what we are seeing on the screen is the extreme right.
Or the red one, which is hematuria. That's blood in the urine because there's an injury along the tract. The dark one usually is what you see in malaria after the red cells break down. they have the dark urine, then that dark urine is directly toxic to the kidneys. So the kidney is trying to remove that urine, but it's toxic to it, and then it gets injured in the process. So you have the child come in, they are not producing urine at all for 3 days. The child hasn't passed urine. That's an indication, but that's usually a late indication that there's something going on with the kidney.
So as parents, how do you, I mean, David is a parent. I have younger children. How do you, so I mean, you've mentioned, of course, paying attention to the quantity of urine, the frequency of urine, but beyond that, there are other things that we should be looking out for. Because, and I'm asking this because frequent urination could mean a urinary tract infection, but young children pee a lot.
Exactly.
They're always in the bathroom. Like, you can't move 5 meters without mommy, I want to wee. You know, so how do you know? How do you track these things?
Okay, so some of them will have to be taken in context. I'm glad you mentioned young children, because this takes me back, especially for boys. One thing that now we are not seeing, which we should, before the age of diapers, we're seeing will be the urine stream for boys. Because the mother will come and say, my child's urine doesn't go far. It just dribbles in front of them. That's an indication of a blockade in the, somewhere along the tracts. And it's one of the commonest conditions they are born with that causes damage to the kidney. So if the mother is able to see that my child's urine stream doesn't go far, especially for the boys, because it's commoner in boys, it's called the PUV, posterior urethral valves. So there's valves that's preventing urine from coming out. The urine sort of accumulates back pressure and then causes damage to the kidney. And this can even be picked when a child is still in utero, before they are born. So that's another one thing we will pick up. But now, because the kids are wearing diapers till 8, 2, 8, 3, you may miss it till then. But the urine stream is something that if you notice anything, it's not going as far, it's dribbling, yes. I know the children there, if every 5 minutes they want to pee, so it's difficult to tell. But usually if there's reduction in urine production associated with or accompanied with the swelling of the eyes, the puffy eyes that I talked about, that happens in the morning, then yes, it's something we need to look at. And sometimes when you come to the hospital, something as simple as a urine test can be able to pick some of these things. So if you have any concern, better safe than sorry. We can always take a look at the urine. It's a simple test, and that could be an indication to sort of further investigate.
Okay.
I understand that the kidney loves fluid.
Yes.
Just give it fluid.
Yeah.
How much, you know, there's always been the debates as to how much you should drink. Some say 2 liters, some say
and what
3
to drink.
liters of water every day. Can you overdo it? Is there such a thing as overdoing it?
There is, but if you were drinking too much water than your body requires, then we'll be looking at other problems. Could it be diabetes? Because one of the early signs, even in children, of having diabetes would be that they are drinking a lot. That's because they're peeing a lot. So their body calls for it. So your body has a way of regulating your test based on your fluid state.
Yeah.
If you're okay, it doesn't prompt you to drink. But if there's a reduction, you're prompted to drink.
Okay.
So there's hardly a time you get somebody just drinking too much. The body would sort of regulate
that.
your test based on your fluid. So that picture in particular on the board, if you are very well hydrated and you pee, it should look like water, almost like water. And then the darker it gets, that means that's how dehydrated you are. The more dehydrated you are, the more concentrated your urine, and the darker the color. So the amount for adults, we say 3 liters. For kids, we do a whole calculation. In my department, we do everything per kilogram. So we calculate how much fluid a child will need per kilogram. But like I said, your body has a mechanism in place to prompt you to drink when you are thirsty. And then when it doesn't need water, it doesn't prompt you.
How does one keep their kidneys healthy?
Okay, so there are a lot of prevention, right? We're talking
Yes.
of, yes. That's usually Dr. Kelvin's domain, isn't it?
Yes.
It is.
So, you know, some of the things I mentioned, if we could catch malaria early and treat it so that it doesn't progress to damage, if we could catch dehydration and treat it, if we could avoid certain drugs over the counter. Sometimes in this country, because Our regulation of drugs is a bit lax, so anybody can go to the pharmacy and get any drug at all. So that alone poses a problem. Even antibiotics, some of them are what we call nephrotoxic. They are toxic to the kidney.
Wow.
So some of these things, over-the-counter medications, and NSAIDs, brufen, paracetamol, we underestimate brufen and diclofenac. We underestimate them, but they are also nephrotoxic. So we need to avoid some of these things. And then the herbal preparations, and then all sorts of other toxins that sometimes we give the kids. Even food items can also do that. Generally, when we are talking about kidney health, we advise or advocate low-salt diets for the whole family.
Okay.
So it's not like we wait for you to get kidney disease, then we say no-salt diet. But if we were to implement low-salt diets, then we are less likely to get to the point where we will say no salt.
Okay, when it comes to treatment, what should people expect? Assuming, unfortunately, you're dealing with a child who does develop kidney disease that's diagnosed. What kinds of treatments are available, and what stages, at which stage should you expect, the various treatments? And then how expensive or affordable are they? Not to scare people from going to the hospital, but at least you should know, so that you can start preparing your mind if you're seeing some of these signs and symptoms that we're talking about.
So, for example, for a urinary tract infection, you pick it up early. You come, it's a course of antibiotics for 5 days to a week. That could be anything from a few tens of cedis. It's usually not expensive. Antibiotics are not expensive. But if it progresses and it gets complicated, you may be admitted. So this admission will come with its charge. And then you get IV medications, which will come with charge. So as it gets more serious, it gets more expensive. If you get to the point where you actually have kidney injury, like I talked about the malaria and stuff, somebody will have simple malaria, come to hospital, and would now require maybe 4 sessions of dialysis.
Wow.
That's expensive because you need to buy a dialysis catheter. This is like 1,000 cedis plus. Then each session of dialysis is about 300 cedis, so you need to calculate all that. And it's not as if this is a chronic illness, so you didn't plan for it. The child was well and running about, then a couple of days sort of got to that stage. So oftentimes when they come, it's a challenge to sort of get this money to, and then for the catheter, you need to purchase it. It's not like you're going to buy it. You're going to be billed with it after treatment. So you need to have that 1,000 cedis to purchase it, and it's quite challenging. There are other disease conditions like nephrotic syndrome, which is also one of the common ones we see. And there are drugs, if the first line fails, that's steroids, we give them steroids. If it fails, there's the next line of drugs we give them. That's quite expensive. And for a month, somebody will require maybe 1,000 to 2,500, depending on your weight. Because the bigger you are, the more you need to sort of, for treatment for a month. For one child,
salary.
Imagine you have 3 children, and then you haven't paid school fees yet. So it can become quite expensive.
So prevention
It's better.
is better. It's better.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's better.
Dr. Annie, so how do people reach out to you if they want to get in touch with you?
So I'm at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital where I work now. Oftentimes we get cases coming from all over because we are in a referral center. So people see cases, sometimes they call directly and then they manage, or if it goes beyond what their facility can do, then they refer to us. So we are there usually all week. Until
I understand there's an event coming up, the Ghana Kidney Association.
Yes. Actually, the World Kidney Day, like Apriko mentioned, it's on the 9th of March.
Okay.
And this year's theme, so there's a picture before that one. This year's theme is on what? Kidney health for all. Then the theme says what? Preparing for the unexpected, supporting the vulnerable. And this theme was chosen post the COVID era. So preparing for the unexpected is like post-COVID, we all see what has happened. People living with kidney disease have been a group of people that have been affected, because if money is channeled towards COVID fights, COVID vaccines and all of that, then we sort of lose track of the other things. So there was the nephrotic syndrome I talked about. Recently, we had money to buy drugs. We couldn't get the drugs because they're not in the country. And then that has also affected the cost of the drugs. So they're supporting the vulnerable. As you're living with kidney disease, we're able to afford your drugs now because of economic situations worldwide. You cannot afford the drug. The cost has doubled, tripled, and people are having to ration their drugs and do maybe 1 daily or instead of 3 times daily. It's been quite challenging. So this is the theme for this year, preparing for the unexpected and then supporting the vulnerable. That's the theme. And then our own in Ghana, the Ghana Kidney Association is having a celebration in Takoradi, and they're having a health training on the 8th of March. That's tomorrow at the Accra Mall. So you can pass through. They will have some education sessions, and then also screen people for kidney diseases.
Okay.
Sometimes the tests are simple, like I mentioned. We can do the urine test, we can do a simple blood test, which will test the level of waste in the blood, because the kidneys are supposed to get rid of waste. So if that waste is building up, then we know that there's a problem.
It's a problem.
We have a whole calculation we do, and they will put you on which level of kidney disease you are at.
Wonderful.
Thank
Wonderful.
you. And if people want to reach out to you, find out more,
Oh, if you want to find out more,
are you on social media?
yeah.
You're not really on social media.
I am, and then I'm not. But
And when she is, she's very vocal.
I have my moments. So it's Aniowusu. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I've gone on break.
Okay. All right, so
Yeah.
Okay.
you can reach out to Dr. Aniowusu.
Any
on
special takeaway
Facebook.
as we're approaching World Kidney Day?
So the whole aim is to create awareness, make people aware that there's something called kidney diseases out there, in our cases too in children, so that steps could be taken to prevent some of these things before they happen. And also inform groups and donor groups who are interested in supporting people with kidney disease. There are so many of them, chronic kidney disease requiring weekly dialysis and all that. It's not cheap. People have corporate organizations sponsoring them. So if we have those people, it always helps support these vulnerable, because it's not, the disease has happened already now. Where do we go from here? That's supporting them as well. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
very much.